Saudi visit to boost trade and Islamic cooperation. Philippines and Canada sign visiting troops deal. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I'm Otto Othman. His Majesty Sultan Ibrahim, King of Malaysia, departed for Saudi Arabia this morning for a state visit aimed at strengthening Malaysia's bilateral ties and international cooperation. A Royal Malaysian Air Force aircraft carrying His Majesty left the Subang Air Base at 9 a.m. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Fadilah Yusof led senior ministers and top officials in bidding farewell to the King. While in Riyadh, Sultan Ibrahim is scheduled to hold a four-eyed meeting with Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman at the Yamamah Palace. The King will then continue his state visit to Bahrain on 6 November at the invitation of King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, marking the first ever state visit to Bahrain since diplomatic relations began in 1974. The visit underscores Malaysia's commitment to deepening partnerships with key nations for the benefit of its people and the country. The state visit of Sultan Ibrahim to Saudi Arabia is expected to further strengthen bilateral relations and expand strategic cooperation in trade, investment and Islamic affairs between the two countries. Now, Malaysia's ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Dato' Said Bakri Said Abdul Rahman, says the visit will elevate ties to new heights, opening doors for joint ventures and Malaysian investments under Saudi Vision 2030.
Terdapat juga potensi untuk syarikat-syarikat Malaysia juga melabur di Arab Saudi. Sebab ekonomi Arab Saudi berkembang pesat. Okey, di bawah visi 2030 di bawah kepimpinan Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, pembangunan amat pesat di Arab Saudi dan terdapat skop yang luas untuk syarikat-syarikat Malaysia juga datang melabur di Arab Saudi, terutamanya di dalam bidang pelancongan, kesihatan dan juga di dalam bidang construction.
He said Riyadh is extending the highest level of state hospitality, marking the first state visit by a Malaysian monarch since 1984. Trade between both countries reached 44.7 billion ringgit, with growing collaboration across key economic sectors. The visit also highlights Malaysia's appreciation for Saudi Arabia's continued support and facilitation for Malaysian pilgrims performing Hajj and Umrah. Iraq has signed a deal with Turkey under which water infrastructure projects to be carried out by Turkish firms will be financed with revenue from oil sales. The Iraqi Prime Minister's office said the two countries had signed an accord on an implementation mechanism for a water cooperation agreement that they sealed last year.
Sayın meslektaşımın ifade ettiği gibi bir su anlaşması imzalayacağız bugün Sayın Başbakan'ın huzurunda. Gerçekten bu anlaşma fevkalade önemli. İki ülke tarihinde ilk defa hayata geçecek. Biliyorsunuz uzun yıllardır Türkiye ve Irak suyu daha verimli nasıl kullanabiliriz?
Iraq's government will establish a committee for water infrastructure projects and invite bids for them from Turkish companies, with payments for the projects to be financed by revenue from Iraqi oil sales to Turkey. The initial batch of projects expected under the agreement includes 3 water harvesting dam projects and 3 land reclamation initiatives. The Philippines has signed a visiting forces agreement with Canada, the latest in a series of pacts aimed at countering Beijing's assertiveness in the disputed South China Sea. Now, the Royal Canadian Navy last year began taking part in a joint maritime patrols in the area with its US, Australian, Japanese and Philippine counterparts. The visiting forces deal would allow Canadian troops to participate in joint exercises on land as well. Canadian Defence Minister David McGuinty said the agreement would depend or deepen the relationship with the Philippine military while advancing Ottawa's Asia-Pacific strategy, which calls for a forward presence in the region.
partnership is expanding. We'll be moving forward on training fronts, on exchanges with our military colleges, information sharing, understanding of cyber and cybersecurity. The Secretary was mentioning the incredible work that he and his team has done on new cyber standards for the Philippines. We're all contending with these challenges. And of course, maritime domain awareness. We hope to be present in the military exercises like Balikatan next spring.
Manila signed a visiting forces pact with New Zealand earlier this year and already had agreements in place with the US, Australia, and Japan. Israel is warning it could intensify operations in Lebanon against Hezbollah, accusing the Iran-backed group of rearming despite a ceasefire reached last November. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Lebanon must disarm Hezbollah or face stronger Israeli action. Defense Minister Israel Katz accused Beirut of dragging its feet, warning that Israel will not tolerate threats to its northern border. Israeli forces remain deployed in southern Lebanon and have continued regular airstrikes, including a recent raid that killed several Hezbollah fighters. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has ordered the army to confront Israeli incursions and accused Israel of escalating attacks, even as Beirut called for talks. The latest Israeli strike in Nabatea killed 4 people, including members of Hezbollah's elite Radwan force, reigniting fears of a renewed front along the Lebanon-Israel border. Israel said it had received the remains of 3 additional captives from Hamas as part of an ongoing hostage prisoner exchange under a U.S.-brokered ceasefire agreement for Gaza. Hamas's armed wing said it had found the 3 bodies along the route of one of the tunnels in the southern Gaza Strip. Since the start of the truce, Hamas has released the 20 surviving hostages and begun handing over the remains of 28 deceased captives. Of those, it has so far returned 17. Israel has accused Hamas of dragging its feet in the returning of bodies, while the Palestinian group says the process is slow because many remains are buried beneath Gaza's rubble. Hamas has repeatedly called on mediators and the Red Cross to provide it with the necessary equipment and personnel to recover the bodies. Hamas spokesman Hazem Qasim said in a statement that the latest handover showed that the group is making every effort to return the remains as quickly as possible. Now, Iran will rebuild its nuclear facilities with greater strength after Israeli and U.S. airstrike damaged key facilities. President Masoud Pezeshkian told state media the attacks would not set Iran back, insisting its scientists still have the nuclear know-how.
این علم در درون این دانشمندان ماست. با خراب کردن ساختمان‌ها و کارخانه‌ها ما چه میگن مشکل پیدا نخواهیم کرد. دوباره خواهیم ساخت و با قدرت بیشتری خواهیم ساخت. سعی میکنن در دنیا گسترش بدن اینه که ما به طرف هسته‌ای رفتیم برای اینکه بمب درست کنیم، در صورتی که مقام معظم رهبری اعلام کردن و فتوا دادن که ما به طرف بمب از نظر اعتقادی نمیتونیم بریم.
Pezeshkian made his comments during a visit to the country's atomic energy organization, during which he met with senior managers from Iran's nuclear industry. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned that he would order fresh attacks on Iran's nuclear sites should Tehran try to restart facilities that the U.S. bombed in June. The U.S. launched strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, claiming they were part of a weapons program. Tehran, however, insists its nuclear activities are purely for civilian use. Russia fired a wave of drones and missiles at Ukraine overnight, killing at least 6 people, including 2 children, and cutting power to tens of thousands. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claimed the attacks showed Moscow was aiming to inflict harm on civilians. He also announced that Kyiv had beefed up its air defenses in response. The office of Ukraine's prosecutor general said Russian forces attacked the Dnipropetrovsk and Odessa regions, and the region's governors said Russia's attacks also cut power to the entire eastern Donetsk region, as well as almost 58,000 households in the southern Zaporizhzhia region. Both Russia and Ukraine also claimed to have made gains in the fighting in the key eastern city of Pokrovsk, where Ukraine is under pressure from an intense Russian assault involving thousands of troops. Sudan's Prime Minister Kamil Idris is calling for war crimes in El Fasher to be tried in international courts after the city fell to the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. Now, in an interview with a Swiss newspaper, Idris accused the international community of doing too little, saying every atrocity must be prosecuted, including at the global level. El Fasher, the army's last stronghold in Darfur, was captured by RSF after 18 months of siege and starvation. Survivors have reported executions, rape and looting, drawing worldwide condemnation. Idris urged the UN to label the RSF a terrorist organization, but rejected any deployment of foreign troops, calling it illegal and harmful to Sudan's sovereignty. Now, the fall of El Fasher gives the RSF full control of Darfur and effectively divides Sudan east to west, raising fears of a new national split. The RSF, descended from the militias accused of genocide 20 years ago, faces fresh allegations of ethnic massacres in the ongoing civil war. British police said they now consider only one of the two men they arrested as a suspect in the mass stabbing on a London-bound train. British Transport Police said detectives investigating the stabbing on the train in Cambridgeshire confirmed a 32-year-old man who was arrested is now being treated as the only suspect. It said that he remains in police custody on suspicion of attempted murder, adding he was from Peterborough, where he boarded the train. It added the 35-year-old man from London, who was also arrested at the scene, has been released with no further action. Police were alerted to an emergency on board a train between Doncaster, a town in northeast England, and London's King's Cross station. 10 people were initially taken to the hospital, with 4 discharged shortly after. One of the people wounded in the attack, a member of the rail staff who was on the train and tried to stop the attacker, remains in a life-threatening condition. Police said their investigation is moving at pace and they are confident they are not looking for anyone else in connection to the incident. Still ahead, Hurricane Melissa death toll climbs to 28 in Jamaica.
My Card bukan sekadar kad pengenalan, tetapi medium utama yang menghubungkan rakyat dengan pelbagai perkhidmatan kerajaan dan swasta. Banyak insentif kerajaan disalurkan melalui My Card, daripada bantuan kebajikan, kemudahan kesihatan hinggalah pelbagai program rakyat. Inilah keistimewaan yang dimiliki oleh setiap warga negara Malaysia. Sila periksa keadaan My Card anda. Sekiranya chip rosak, hilang atau My Card sudah uzur, segera lakukan penggantian di Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara agar hak dan kemudahan anda sentiasa terjamin. Inilah komitmen Madani dengan dokumen identiti yang sah, moden dan diyakini. Rakyat disantuni sebaiknya. My Card, identiti anda, kebanggaan negara.
High inequality makes the world vulnerable to pandemics and creates a vicious cycle that puts public health and economies at risk. Now, these findings were based on 2 years of research by the UN AIDS-convened Global Council on Inequality, AIDS, and Pandemics. Now, the report said high levels of inequality within and between countries are making the world more vulnerable to pandemics, making pandemics more economically disruptive and making them last longer. It added pandemics in turn increase inequality, driving the cycle self-reinforcing relationship. The inequality pandemic cycle could be seen in recent global public health crises such as COVID-19, AIDS, Ebola, influenza, and Mpox. The report stressed that failure to tackle key inequalities and social determinants since COVID-19 has left the world extremely vulnerable to and unprepared for the next pandemic. The report urged more equal access to treatments and health technology between richer and poorer countries. It also called for increased funding for local and regional production and for an immediate waiver of intellectual property once the pandemic is declared. Tensions escalated outside Serbia's parliament as hundreds of protesters gathered to support Dijana Hrka, a mother whose child died in a railway station roof collapse in Novi Sad last year. Hrka began a hunger strike on Sunday near the metal fence blocking the road to Serbia's parliament. Police stopped her from entering the area occupied by pro-government supporters since March. By evening, clashes erupted as protesters threw flares towards the tents, prompting riot police to step in. Officers formed cordons to keep rival groups apart as tensions flared. Months of protests over the unpunished roof collapse have shaken President Aleksandar Vucic's hold on power and fueled calls for early elections. Hrka is demanding an investigation and wants Vucic questioned over the tragedy. Storm-ravaged communities in western Jamaica are struggling to recover after record-breaking Hurricane Melissa left at least 28 people dead and towns in ruins. Prime Minister Andrew Holness confirmed the updated death toll, warning more fatalities may be reported as rescue efforts continue. Melissa slammed into Jamaica last Tuesday as a Category 5 hurricane, the strongest in 90 days or 90 years, with winds of 185 miles per hour. Power and communication lines remain down across western parishes, cutting off entire communities. Homes, hospitals, and businesses have been flattened. The UN says the damage could equal Jamaica's entire annual GDP of nearly $20 billion, calling it a devastating long-term blow to the economy. Global aid efforts are now underway with medical and emergency teams from the UN, WHO, and the US already on the ground. UN Chief Antonio Guterres has urged the international community to mobilize massive resources to help Jamaica rebuild. The United States, meanwhile, has announced $3 million in aid for Cubans affected by Hurricane Melissa, with funds to be distributed through the Catholic Church instead of the Cuban government. Cuba reported no fatalities, but officials say several eastern provinces suffered major damage to homes, infrastructure, and crops. The U.S. State Department said the aid will go directly to affected communities, adding that its prayers are with the brave Cuban people. Washington has maintained an economic embargo on Cuba for over 6 decades, and Havana has responded by urging the U.S. to lift it. U.S. emergency teams are also on the ground assisting recovery efforts after the storm. Lahore has been ranked the world's most polluted major city as thick smog blanketed Pakistan's second largest city. Air quality monitoring group IQ Air recorded a reading of 237, labeled very unhealthy, far above safe levels. Despite the choking haze, residents were still out playing cricket, saying they had nowhere left for fresh air. Locals are urging stronger government action, including free public transport and fair enforcement of anti-smog rules. Authorities have deployed water-spraying anti-smog guns, but experts say the measures only bring temporary relief. India successfully launched its heaviest communications satellite, CMS-03, into orbit from the country's Sriharikota Air Spaceport. Now, the Indian Space Agency said the 4,410-kilogram multi-band satellite was precisely injected within the specification of the orbit. The satellite is designed to provide communications coverage across India and adjacent ocean regions. Fort Worth police have released body cam footage showing officers rescuing a baby trapped under an overturned vehicle after a crash. The collision threw both the female driver and an infant from the car, the baby ending up pinned beneath it and unresponsive. Officers, with help from a bystander, pushed the vehicle aside and pulled the baby to safety. One officer performed CPR until the infant started breathing again. Both the women and the baby are now in stable condition and expected to recover fully. Up next in sports, Sinner regains world #1 status with triumph in Paris. Now we begin our sports segment with football. Erling Haaland delivered another masterclass in ruthless finishing with 2 goals as Manchester City beat high-flying Bournemouth 3-1 and climbed into second place in the Premier League. Haaland, who tops the Premier League scoring chart with 13 goals in 10 games, broke the deadlock in the 17th minute, heading the ball forward from just past the halfway line and then barreling down on goal before coolly slotting home past Georgi Petrovic. Bournemouth, however, hit back through Tyler Adams in the 25th minute. City goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma could not get a clean punch on the ball and it dropped to Adams, who stabbed it in from close range. The visitors were not level for long as Haaland restored City's lead 8 minutes later, beating the Bournemouth defence before going around Petrovic to slot home with a left-footed shot from a tight angle. Nico O'Reilly struck from just inside the box to add a third for City in the 60th minute, when he latched on to a pass from Phil Foden and threaded the ball through Marcos Senesi's legs and into the net. The victory moves Pep Guardiola's side 6 points behind leaders Arsenal with 19 points, while Bournemouth, who suffered their first loss in 9 league games, fell to 4th in the table on 18 points. Moving on to tennis, Italy's Yannick Sinner powered past Felix Auger-Aliassime 6-4, 7-6 to capture his maiden Paris Masters title. It was a triumph that catapulted the Italian back to the summit of the men's rankings ahead of the ATP finals. Sinner made his intentions clear from the opening game, breaking Auger-Aliassime's serve before consolidating the break as he controlled rallies while the Canadian leaked unforced errors. The Italians' dominance was complete in the opening set when Auger-Aliassime failed to earn a single break point, while Sinner dropped just 3 points on serve, sealing the set by firing a cross-court forehand winner. The second set offered more resistance, however, as Auger-Aliassime showed his mettle, saving 5 break points. But even his resolute defense could not crack Sinner's serving stronghold as the set headed to a tie-break. Auger-Aliassime held his own in the tie-break until a crucial error handed Sinner the advantage, and the Italian needed no second invitation to surge into the lead. Sinner then delivered the knockout blow on a match point, forcing Auger-Aliassime wide during the rally before unleashing a searing backhand winner down the line to claim his 5th Masters crown. Elsewhere, Anna Blinkova beat wildcard Lily Tagger 6-3, 6-3 to win the Jiangxi Open final and clinch the second WTA Tour title of her career. Blinkova, whose last title came in Cluj-Napoca in 2022, took an hour and 40 minutes to beat the Austrian 17-year-old. The match began with a run of 4 straight breaks of serve before the Russian was able to seize control of the contest and take the first set. Tagger attempted to hit back in the second set and pushed 95th ranked Blinkova, who had to defend 3 break points before going on to win the match. Defending champion Coco Gauff struggled with double faults as Jessica Pegula beat her 6-3, 6-7, 6-2 in their WTA finals match in Riyadh. 2-time Grand Slam winner Gauff committed 17 double faults and 45 forehand unforced errors as she lost to Pegula in the second game of Group Steffi Graf. The match began with 5 straight breaks until Pegula managed to hold her serve to go 4-2 up. Gauff saved 2 set points, but her struggles with double faults in the final game sealed the first set in Pegula's favor. Third seed Gauff bounced back in the second set, landing 5 aces and forcing Pegula to stay near the baseline. Gauff broke early to build a 5-4 lead, but committed 2 double faults as Pegula got the break back to make it 5-all. Gauff broke again to go 6-5 up and was serving for the set, but committed 3 straight double faults to lose the game. The 21-year-old finally secured the set in a tie-break. Pegula was better prepared for Gauff's pressure tactics in the third set, as the 5th seed found the perfect angle for a forehand return from the baseline to go 3-2 up with a break. A struggling Gauff could not win another game, registering 75 unforced errors in the 112 points she lost in the match. Meanwhile, top seed Aryna Sabalenka kicked off her WTA Finals campaign with a dominant 6-3, 6-1 win over Jasmine Paolini, registering her 5th straight victory over the world number 8. The US Open champion landed 11 aces and frustrated Paolini with powerful returns near the sidelines, with the Italian growing tired as the match progressed. World number 1 Sabalenka has now won 60 matches on the tour this year. 4-time Grand Slam champion Sabalenka got her first break with a backhand across the court to go 2-love up. Paolini troubled the world number 1 with low shots down the middle as Sabalenka's awkward forehand returns hit the net twice, with the Italian getting a crucial break to reduce the Belarusian's lead to 4-3. But Sabalenka, who was the runner-up in the 2022 edition of the WTA Finals, broke again to go to 5-3 up, before landing 4 aces in the next game to hold her serve and secure the set 6-3. Sabalenka won the next 4 games to build up a 4-love lead in the second set, which proved to be unassailable for 2-time Grand Slam finalist Paolini. French cyclist Charles Costa, who had been the world's oldest living Olympic gold medalist, has died at age 101. Costa, who won the Olympic gold in track cycling's team pursuit alongside Pierre Adam, Serge Blusson and Ferdinand de Canali, passed away last Thursday. He had been the world's oldest living Olympic gold medalist following the death of Hungarian artistic gymnast Agnes Keleti at the age of 103 on 2nd January this year. Costa was one of the torchbearers during the opening ceremony of the 2024 Paris Olympics. His record also includes the 1949 Grand Prix des Nations, a 140-kilometer time trial in which he beat Italian Fausto Coppi, a Tour de France and Giro d'Italia champion. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, King's Saudi visit to boost trade and Islamic cooperation. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Until then, I'm Otto Othman, Malaysia Madani, Rakyat, Disantuni. Thanks for watching.